Hey, welcome back. Well, we certainly have an interesting X-Files episode today when we have ourselves a look at Schizogeny, episode 9 of season 5. Premiering January 11th, 1998, Mulder and Scully are sent out to investigate the murder of a teen boy's stepfather, only to discover the culprit of it all might be an evil tree. Oh boy. The episode begins with a little MDK on the original PlayStation, and for all the uncultured swine out there, that stands for murder, death, kill, because everything in the 90s had to be super edgy. This might also be the first time someone was actually playing a video game in a show or movie instead of pretending to. While Bobby plays his murder simulator, his stepfather comes home from a long day of work and he does not look happy. So Bobby's been hanging out listening to Rob Zombie and playing video games. Isn't that what all teenagers do? His stepfather Phil is rightly annoyed because Bobby decided to ignore his mother and not do his chores, which I guess is digging his own grave? Seriously, what the hell is he supposed to be digging?
You'll finish the job. Now.
Get away from me! Get away from me now!
Alright Bobby, just relax. All he wanted was for you to finish digging your grave. You could have played video games afterwards. Instead, Bobby decides to run, which I'm sure will make the beating he's gonna receive much more severe. Bobby encounters some guy with an axe who just sorta looks at him, which is weird. His father is then tripped by a root in the ground and then sorta starts sinking into the dirt. Well, I guess it's better it happens to your stepfather than your horse.
You're letting the sadness of the swamps get to you. You have to try.
Mulder and Scully are called onto the scene because who else is going to investigate the Earth swallowing someone whole? At first I thought Scully was preparing a chocolate cake, but no, that's the dirt Phil inhaled, all 12 pounds of it. So despite a backhoe being used to dig Phil's body out of the ground, and his body being discovered in a standing position, Scully seems to believe that Bobby, Phil's 90-pound soaking wet stepson, somehow held Phil's head under the mud. Well, okay then.
How a 6'4", 250-pound man was buried alive in less than 5 minutes by a 16-year-old kid whose classmates lovingly referred to as dorkweed.
You know, I don't think Mulder said dorkweed. It looks more like he said dickweed.
Dorkweed. Dorkweed. Dorkweed.
Scully notices some bruising around Phil's ankle and thinks Bobby may have had a little help. The agents head over to Bobby's home to speak to him, and he has quite the interesting bedroom. Lots of horror and metal posters. This here is Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers. This looks like the girl from Return of the Living Dead Part 3. We've got the Howling over here. I could be wrong, but this looks like one of the sculptures from the episode Grotesque. And then just a random photo of a topless woman. You know, I would love to know who dressed the set, because I don't think anyone realized there's a random photo of a woman removing her shirt. Anyways, Bobby claims he was trying to help his stepfather, which is how it looked to me as well. But considering everyone knew how much he hated him, the police are desperately trying to pin this on him.
Phil used to get off shoving me around. Yeah.
According to Bobby's mother, Phil has never even raised a hand to her son. However, Bobby's mumbled speech suggests that Phil took pleasure in pushing him around. I have a feeling Mom may have been a bit blind to what was happening to her son. After their little talk, Mulder finds a mystery substance on one of the trees in the orchard and nearly tastes it. He just can't help himself. The agents check out the hole Phil's body was recovered from, and that weird guy with the axe returns and just stares at them. If you're trying not to be suspicious, you're doing a terrible job at it.
What was it?
I don't know. He's gone.
I like how she says this as if the guy mysteriously vanished. Meanwhile, at Bayside High, Bobby speaks to Lisa, who's a friend, though I get the feeling Bobby wants a little more. Some 90s bullies attack him for some reason, but quickly back off when Bobby threatens to kill them next. Bobby, I don't think threatening to kill even more people is really gonna help with your I didn't do it defense.
Psycho killer.
Bobby, I think you're starting to scare Lisa. Since the agents aren't really getting anywhere, they decide to speak with Bobby's therapist, Karen Matthews. Karen claims that Bobby's experienced more abuse than his mother wants to admit. One time he spilled some milk at dinner and was forced to eat in the cellar for 2 whole weeks, without a table, a chair, or even light. Honestly, I have a hard time believing this story. It's a good thing Mulder has a foot fetish because he notices a little dirt on Karen's shoe. But why is there dirt on your shoe, Karen? Sometime later, Lisa is walking all by her lonesome in the middle of nowhere, which is not the safest thing in the world for a young teen girl. Don't worry though, because Bobby knew exactly where she would be. He placed one of those Apple AirTags on her, didn't he?
I gotta go.
You gotta stand up, Lisa. You gotta tell your dad you're not gonna put up with this crap.
Is he drunk and or high? Bobby isn't the only one that is having parental issues at home, and he seems to know the answer, but again, Bobby, I think you're just scaring her. Wait, they were just outside her house? When he pulled up, it looked like she was just walking down a random side road. Anyways, Lisa's father doesn't seem to be too pleased that she's talking to Bobby. He tells her he doesn't want her seeing Bobby anymore, but I don't think she's gonna listen. Don't worry, Lisa, your father's neck is supposed to do that. It's no time for puzzles, Mulder. Scully believes Lisa's father was pushed out of the window, and that Lisa may have been responsible. The two of them were having a little argument just prior to his death, so it's hard to disagree with her. It sure is interesting that Karen seems to be involved with teenagers whose parents die under mysterious circumstances.
Have you asked her what happened?
Isn't that your job?
Can you just answer the damn question? Karen, which is a very fitting name for this woman by the way, seems to be doing whatever she can to empower these kids to end their cycle of abuse. But I think she may have empowered them a wee too much. It's one thing to end abuse, it's another thing to murder.
Well, she says that he also threatened to kill a boy in school yesterday.
See, Bobby, I told you that was going to come back to haunt you. Mulder notices something interesting because there seems to be more glass on the inside of the house than the outside. There's also some damage that would suggest Lisa's father wasn't pushed out of the window, rather he was pulled through the window. Since this is all very confusing, the only thing they really have to go on is the fact Bobby is ushering death threats and was seen outside Lisa's home at the time of the incident. Scully enters Bobby's classroom and tells him she needs to ask him a few questions.
I don't want to have to embarrass you in front of your class.
Well, I ain't embarrassed.
Alright, relax, Timu Skeet Ulrich. I like how he tries to play it off like he's some cool badass, and not some dorky teen who has one of the worst profile shots I have ever seen. Well, now this is interesting. Scully is sent to question Bobby, while Mulder is the one who checks out the dead man at the morgue. I feel like, oh maybe, I don't know, maybe a medical doctor would be more suited to look at the body? It's funny though, because Mulder does seem to spot something that the supposed professional completely overlooked. Meanwhile, Scully checks Bobby out because she thinks he's on drugs or something. Mulder comes in with a baggie labeled evidence, which seems to freak Bobby out, but it just appears to be a giant sliver. Imagine getting that bad boy jammed in you. Why has Karen been given so much authority over Lisa? She's just a therapist. Karen tells Lisa to pack a suitcase because her aunt will be arriving in the morning to pick her up, and she's gonna be spending the night at Karen's.
You're ruining my life. You hear me? I wish you'd never been born.
Lisa, I think you should probably get the hell out of there. Since Mulder found the splinter, he thinks it came from a tree outside Lisa's home and not from the house itself. So the only logical thing is to climb it, of course. Thank God I had a rope, otherwise this would be much more difficult.
Hey, Scully, is this demonstration of boyish agility turning you on at all?
Well, I don't know about Scully, but the mysterious Axeman returns again, and if I were Scully, I'd be pulling my gun out right about now. He claims the trees are dying, and to prove it, he hacks away at one, revealing what looks to be blood. I don't know much about trees, but I don't think they're supposed to bleed. Lisa decides that instead of leaving Karen's house, she'd rather go snooping around in the basement. She just found a body and barely even reacts. But I was right, she should have left because now she's trapped in the basement. You know, I'm starting to think that Karen might be involved. The agents decide to speak to Karen because her father died some 20 years prior in almost the exact same way Bobby's stepfather did, which is very strange. Karen refuses to help and tells the agents Lisa left to live with her aunt, which is an obvious lie because the poor girl is in the basement.
Karen, I'm scared. Let me out, please.
I will, but not until it's safe.
Safe from what? You're a psychopath who locked her down there. Mulder takes it upon himself to open the grave of Karen's father, which I'm not really sure you can do without a court order, but it doesn't matter anyways because all he finds are roots. Surprisingly, Lisa's aunt actually arrives to pick her up, but Karen tells her Lisa left to the bus station and then just closes the door in her face.
Okay, it'll be okay. I'm gonna call the police.
Well, so much for Lisa's aunt. How long were the agents out there that it's now nighttime? Mulder's beginning to theorize that there's something in the orchard, something that's getting revenge for these kids. Karen did say she was empowering them, but how exactly? Mulder figures they should question the kids again so they can find that out. The spookiest thing in all of this, however, is you can very clearly hear that it's raining.
Look at the victim, Scully.
You can see that it's raining, yet these two are very dry. The agents speak to Bobby again, and Mulder tells him that he doesn't think he killed his stepfather, but he needs to know what really happened. It looks like it was Karen who was putting all of this abuse in Bobby's head, making him pretend to be Phil and then giving him an out to make it all go away. But it doesn't really explain how Phil died, or how Karen made all this happen. Obviously, Phil died from inhaling dirt, but how does the ground randomly open up and swallow someone? The agents decide to go to Karen's house because they need some answers. Since the door is already open, I guess that means they can just go inside. They head downstairs and discover the body of Lisa's aunt. Though shouldn't they have found the body before they went inside the home? If we go back a bit, we can see Lisa's aunt pull up from the basement window, the same window she gets killed in. When Mulder and Scully arrive, they park right behind her car, so they should be in eyesight of her body on the ground, no? It doesn't really matter because they find her body anyways, and possibly Karen's father, who has seen some better days.
Karen caused all this.
You think Karen's the killer?
I think she's the killer and the victim.
Okay, so Karen is the cause of all of this, but it still doesn't explain how trees are attacking people. The agents get locked in the basement but break through the door like it was made from construction paper. They find Lisa, who's in pretty rough shape, and while Scully comforts her, Mulder takes off after Karen. Oh wow, that tree branch tried to leaf a mark in Mulder's chest. Karen makes her way to Bobby's house claiming he's in danger, and he's in danger alright. He's in danger from your crazy ass. Bobby takes off into the orchard and it feels like we've been here before.
You're pathetic.
It seems like Karen's father has taken over her body, I guess, and is now forcing her to try and kill Bobby? If I were in Mulder's shoes though, I'd probably shoot her, because it seems like it would be the only way to stop this. You know what? Decapitation works too. Why does Axe Guy leave without helping Mulder or Bobby out of the mud pit?
No more.
This is a really odd episode. I've done some looking around and it seems like most people dislike this one, with some even saying it's the worst episode in the series. I don't think it's the worst episode in the series. There are some episodes and even entire seasons that are much worse than this. Is the idea of killer trees dumb? Yeah, but I still find it entertaining in a B-movie kind of way. I've always loved bad horror movies, so for me there's just something fun about how stupid this whole thing is. I don't think the idea is terrible. Using childhood abuse as a means of channeling some malevolent force to get revenge, it could work, but it just feels like a jumbled mess. And I guess that's to be expected when you have so many writers putting their own spin on it. The episode was written by Jessica Scott and Mike Wolliger, two first-time writers on the show who had worked on the X-Files, but in a non-writing way. I'm not exactly sure why they were given the opportunity to write an episode for a major TV show when they did nothing of note prior to this. Since it was their first time writing an episode, and well, the last time for the X-Files, it took them considerably longer to get their idea down on paper. However, they needed a lot of help. Many writers for the show came in and helped them revise the script over and over. They eventually settled on what we got, but by all accounts, it was kind of a mess. Everyone involved with the episode would go on to call it the Killer Tree episode, which is a very clever name, almost as clever as the Killer Kitty episode. It somewhat reminds me of the 1990 horror film The Guardian, which was about a tree nymph posing as a nanny who would kidnap children and sacrifice them to this spooky tree. It's pretty silly, but I kind of love it. One thing that has always made me laugh is Chad Lindenberg, who played Bobby. Look, we all had that awkward phase growing up, but he's something special. Every time I watch this, he just makes me think of 90s Skeet Ulrich from another dimension. A dimension where Skeet Ulrich is a big dork. When I was rewatching Buffy last year, I forgot he was in the season 1 episode with the demon Willow thinks she's dating over the computer. When I saw him, I was like, oh no, not Tree Boy.
Anybody home?
Another notable casting is Canada's Catherine Isabelle as Lisa. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Catherine, she has something of a cult following in the horror community, appearing in movies like Ginger Snaps, Freddy vs. Jason, and American Mary, a movie written and directed by Canadian twins the Saska sisters, a couple ladies with a pretty twisted mindset. But don't let the horror facade fool you, because I chat with them from time to time and they're actually pretty nice. For the orchard shots, some of it was filmed outdoors and some of it was filmed indoors. Most of the outdoor stuff in the orchard, not involving people being sucked underground, was shot at a farm in the small town of Fort Langley. Langley is the name of one of the lone gunmen. That can't be a coincidence. All the indoor stuff was shot on a soundstage provided by Lionsgate. 2 tanks were filled with peat moss, mud, and water, and was heated so the actors would be comfortable. It was basically a giant relaxing mud bath. The stunt woman playing Karen's body as it slowly sunk into the mud was given a tube so she could breathe, but they had to be careful because if she was lowered too quickly, the immense weight of the mud would actually prevent her chest from expanding and she wouldn't be able to take in the oxygen. For the tree limb that comes crashing down on Mulder's car, the production crew got lucky when a tree at a nearby farm had become uprooted. They couldn't just grab it and use it, however, because in typical Canadian fashion, they had to ask permission from the Canadian government if they could retrieve it and drop it on the car. And because the car was still in such good shape, they used it again in the episode Kill Switch. Something I poked fun at earlier was when Mulder said dorkweed. It's pretty obvious he says dickweed, but I guess standards and practices didn't like that, so David was forced to voice it over with dorkweed. Standards and Practices has always had a weird relationship with the X-Files. Back in the season 3 episode Toledo Kumi, they forced them to cut down on a fight scene between Mulder and X, and now here they make them dub over a word that they deem to be offensive. But at the same time, they completely miss a topless woman on the wall. So I guess the way it works is violence bad, words bad, boobs good. Schizogeny currently sits at 6.9 on IMDb, and while I do enjoy this one for all the wrong reasons, it's clearly not very good, so I would probably give it a 5. Up next, we have another interesting episode as Scully decides to go on a little vacation, and instead of relaxing, she runs into a little girl and a haunted doll in the episode Chinga. So what do you think of Schizogeny? Let me know down in the comments. Anyways, that's all for today. I hope you're having a good week and stay spooky!
A series of deaths, unimaginable.
All that came out of his stomach?
Bizarre evidence.
Mulder, where's the body?
That's unexplainable.
Have you determined if the neck injury was caused by the fall?
What else would it have been?
And a shocking ending that's unbelievable. The X-Files, an all-new episode Sunday at 9, 8 Central.